Okay. Yesh omrim שהאברכים שיש להם כדי פרנסתם ממלגה של הכולל נקראים עניים. Some say that if you're learning in kollel and you're getting a regular stipend from the kollel, you still qualify as an ani. You still qualify as a poor person because ki hakollel lo mechuyav latet lahem. Because the kollel is not obligated to pay them anything. And therefore, whatever they're getting is in the form of tzedakah. V'yesh omrim sherak kishematzav hakollel b'sakana va'alulim liskor oto hem nikraim aniyim. But others say that they only qualify as an ani if the kollel is in danger of closing. Now, what are the ramifications of this? The ramifications, I suppose, would be, if I'm in kollel, would it be permissible for me to accept additional gifts from various different charities that are in the community that are set up for people who have limited income? And it would seem that I think what he's not taking into account is what is the annual salary that the kollel is giving. If the kollel is giving a payable wage and I don't need additional funds, then I shouldn't be allowed to take from additional tzedakah funds. I mean, I guess that would be a major criterion, right? Okay. So, I mean, I remember it's a time when I was in kollel, way back, many 30 years ago, and my wife and I had such little money. We were living in California, in a kollel in California, that she went on this program called WIC, where the government was giving out, I guess, milk and eggs for young families. Milk, eggs, and diapers, I don't remember what it was. And I felt very uncomfortable because I didn't feel that we should, but my wife said we didn't have enough money. So we went ahead and did it. It was for a short amount of time. But I guess it all depends on what the kollel is paying. Okay. Yesh misha posek she'avrech she'eino ani v'yesh lo kedei parnasato rashai lakachet et hatamicha mehakollel. That some paskin, that if a young man, an avrech, it's a kollel person, is not poor, he has enough that he needs for his parnasa for the year, but he's still allowed to take a stipend from the kollel. Because it's not considered to be charity, what he's getting from the kollel, it's considered to be salary. In other words, if I'm learning for this kollel, I shouldn't just take money because I need it. I'm entitled to a salary just like anyone else. I'm going to work every day. That's right. So obviously, varied opinions. Yeah, varied opinions. And I'll go even further, Marvin, in that it all depends on the convention of that particular kollel. There may be certain kollelim that are set up where they're looking for avrechim, and they go ahead and actively recruit this guy. And he says, okay, I'll learn in your kollel in, Beitar or whatever it is. I could have gone to the Panovitcher kollel, but I'll go to your kollel because you want me to come. But you're going to have to pay me. There's not all kollelim are set up the same. V'yesh mi shemater mishum shebazeh ha'avrech margish hitchayvut lavo lisdarim. Some say that it's not only mutter for the kollel avrech to take a salary, but it's actually proper for him because it incentivizes him to show up every day because he's getting paid for it. Or they want to be able to show the prestige of B'nai Torah by paying them a salary. And therefore, even though a fellow may say, I'm getting supported by my father-in-law and I can get by without the kollel stipend, no, you should still take the kollel stipend. nonetheless. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have a kolel mechanchim. We have a few kolel mechanchim here, even in Toronto, which is comprised of people who are rebbes at various yeshivas, and then they take off a certain amount of time in the day after they're finished teaching, and they go study kolel, and they get a stipend for that. So it helps supplement their income because the schools are not paying stellar salaries. You know, and it also acknowledges that there's value in that learning and advancing their own personal studies. So you do have that concept, absolutely. I don't know how it's structured in Israel. I would imagine that there must be something like that in Israel as well. I think I do remember hearing of let's say a Kollel night seder, where a person after work will come and get paid for learning at night. Or for a second seder, yeah.
I'm here at 60, whatever in the morning here, and we're learning, and then I'm going home, stick it out at work, and I come at night, I go and I learn again, like that. It almost seems like it's just luxury to learn. Nobody's paying me to learn, and you know.
Are you asking?
So yeah, so I'm trying to get why there's this privilege of getting paid to learn. You know, nobody's paying me to learn.
This is true. This is true. I guess. So, right, there's a mitzvah to learn Torah, but I think that part of the idea here is, you know, you're a man at a certain stage of your life where your sacrifice for learning is you could either be home and be watching Netflix or playing cards or going out to a show, and instead you're coming to learn. There are other people at a stage in their life where their wives really need their husbands at home to or they could use their husbands at home to help put the kids to bed and to put the house in order. And it's a much greater sacrifice, shall we say, for them to leave the house or to leave work early or to shave off time from their workday in order to go to the base medrash and enhance their Torah knowledge. And so I think that the argument would be that for these people to be able to learn Torah, there's a great financial sacrifice, or maybe they've chosen professions which allow them flexibility, but they get a lower salary. I think that's the argument, and I think it's a legitimate argument. I think because, you know, when you were a much younger man and you were, you know, taking the world by storm, you probably didn't have as much time, and that was not a priority for you to study Torah in the morning and in the evening, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll tell you, as a person who used to learn in Kollel. So first of all, I never wanted to learn. I did learn in Kollel for 2 years in Baltimore, where I was not out in the community. I was finishing my smicha. I was working on getting smicha. I was going to school at night, and I did not take a salary from the Kollel. I didn't. First of all, I don't even know if it was. I probably could have if I wanted to. I could have applied for it, but I didn't feel that it was right because I was going to school at the time and I was just married and our parents were helping us out. We were very young. But then we spent a year in Israel from our wedding money, and then that was fine. Our 4th year of marriage, we went to California, to San Diego, to help be in a kollel. We were there for 3 years, and best years of learning of my life. But the only reason why I felt that I could justify taking money from a community kollel was because we were out there and doing kiruv to various members of the San Diego Jewish community. So in addition to learning all day, we were giving shiurim at night and developing relationships with people, and really made a very significant impact on the community. Kollel ran out of money and it ended up closing. So that for me was the signal that it was time to leave kollel. There wasn't any other option, and we stayed in San Diego for another 7 years, for another 4 years, I think. But yeah, for another 4 years. I think that every young man has to look at his success in learning, the economic feasibility of his continuing in the path that he's going, and make that determination. At what point does it become diminishing returns, and I'm not able to really maintain my learning because either because I have too many distractions from economic pressures, or I no longer see that I'm learning with the same kind of joy and real excitement that I used to have. So problem is that in Israeli society today, and perhaps in other societies, maybe in America, there may be people who are continuing learning in kollel because they feel certain peer pressure to continue, when in reality they ought to leave. It's time for them to go. There are other people who, because of different opposite peer pressure, may not even view kollel as an option for themselves, when in reality, if they would have stayed in yeshiva, they could have become truly great Torah scholars that would be able to provide great education for the next generation. There's a problem now. I was just at a federation meeting yesterday. It's very, very difficult to find educators today, Jewish educators, across the spectrum, not just in the very Orthodox world. The very Orthodox world is actually easier to find educators. It's when you get to, let's say, modern Orthodox and to the left of that, it's very, very difficult to find people, because people in that orbit are not going into education. They realize that it consigns them to a career that is low paying, just like teachers. Public school teachers are getting harder to find because it consigns them to a lower level of quality of life, perhaps obligates their spouse to go to work as well. And so it's very, very difficult. Yeah, anyway, okay. Yesh omrim shebachur yeshiva shehorav misabkim lo et kol tzrachav eino begeder oni ve'ein latet lo ma'aser. So some opine that if a boy is a yeshiva bacher, his parents are covering all of his expenses. In addition to his tuition, they pay for his room and board, and therefore he doesn't have the category of an ani, and he would not be allowed to take money from tzedakah. Now this has ramifications. What if the yeshiva is offering a special bonus stipend for boys who finish a certain amount of learning? It's coming from tzedakah money. There's maybe a donor who steps forward and says, I want to create an incentive for boys to learn this particular set of learning. And so I'm willing to pay any boy and he uses his tzedakah money for that purpose, any boy who learns X, Y, and Z will get a certain cash prize. Can a boy take money from the tzedakah donation if he's fully supported by his parents? So according to that opinion, he would not qualify as an ani. But there are others who opine that even though his parents provide him with his needs, there's always more, that he doesn't have all of his needs taken care of. It would still be permitted to give that boy some money from your Meiser money, unless the child is really from a wealthy family and he receives all of his needs very generously from his parents, and there's nothing missing. And some say that they're not sure what the status of a yeshiva bachar is, who's he's quoting from over here. The name of the Chazon Ish quotes. V'ayin la'el b'simen be'sif ches of b'simen vav sif ches, and bachor yeshiva chayav b'ma'aser ksafim. Is a yeshiva bachar obligated himself to tithe? And that, I believe we said, yes, everyone's obligated to tithe, right? So, okay, look, it would seem to me, we had discussed before that there's a mitzvah to support Torah institutions, even if there's no one in the Torah institution that would qualify as an ani. So it would seem to me that it would be permitted for a boy to take the money from the yeshiva as an incentive for his learning, if he has use for that money, so that he can, let's say, go and go pay money for the tennis court that he wants to play tennis on after school or whatever it is. It would seem to me that would be okay, unless he really is from a very, very wealthy family, in which case he may want to take the money just because he wants to incentivize himself and then maybe give it back to tzedakah.
It's more about helping him along. There's a little different nuance of incentivizing. In other words, it gives me the impression that he's not going to do it unless he gets paid.
Well, no, not necessarily. But yeah, there are some times when money does push someone over the top. And, he has every good intention of mastering that particular study. And now that he knows that there's a prize, he pushes himself harder. We all do that. We're all incentivized by different things. And there is that concept of mitoch shelo lishma ba lishma. Even though he's doing it for ulterior motives, he should still do it for ulterior motives, because eventually you'll do it for the right motives. So I don't see a problem with that at all. Okay, all right. It's a lower level. No, we're talking about a yeshiva bacher. Guy may be 16 years old, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. We all recognize that guys who are teenagers may need a little bit extra incentive to get them going. So there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with that.
$500 accepted in 3 weeks. Why is that a problem for anyone? This guy is saying X,
Yeah, I guess the question would be: is that considered to be tzedakah money? Is that person? If that person,
if it is, if I say, Rabbi, you learn this Masechta for the Siyam, and I'm going to give you a saver at the end. Are you allowed to take that? I'm spending, Mama Kaddish money. I'm buying the saver. I'm incentivized.
no,
Do you need the money? You need the saver. So how are you allowed to take it?
I'd rather you didn't give me the saver.
But it incentivizes people.
Right.
Wait,
At this stage of my life, I'm trying to get rid of all my smart. Yeah, I have too many books.
It
But-
incentivizes people
Yeah.
to learn in order to get this. So is the question on the people giving the stuff or the person taking this Stop that.
So he's putting it in the perspective of the person taking the tzedakah, but I think that it is reciprocal. But I think you're right, Moish. Anytime we give money we use tzedakah money for incentivizing people to learn Torah, it should be considered to be supporting Torah study. And supporting Torah study is not just supporting the poor people studying Torah, it's everybody studying Torah. So yeah, so he's focusing on the whole concept of whether or not a kollel man or a yeshiva bacher qualifies as an ani. But even if you don't qualify as an ani, you're still allowed to take money for Torah study as a way of boosting the volume of Torah study.
That's always the concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Siman Yud Gimel. Ani sheyesh lo chovot. A poor person who is in debt. Yesh poskim sheni shetzorach labriot v'shot achar parnasas beiso v'nasnu lo tzedakah ein ba'alei chovot rishayim lehipara mehatzdaka shekibel. There are some poskim who say, and he's quoting from the Shulchan Aruch itself, and I think I'd rather look this up. They say that if a person is collecting tzedakah to just basically provide for the needs of his family, then any creditor that is owed money from this poor person is not allowed to take his payment for the debt from that tzedakah. In other words, I'm a frum guy, I lent this guy money, and he doesn't have any money to pay me back. In the meantime, he's getting a regular stipend from a tzedakah fund, but he needs that to support his family. So I can't put this clamp down on him and tighten the screws on him and say, give me some of that tzedakah money that you're getting to pay off your debt. I'm not allowed to do that. Okay. V'yesh poskim shebalei chovot rishayim lihipara mitzdakazu. And there are other opinions who say that the creditors are allowed to take from the tzedakah money that he gets. There was a guy who I think he's still around. He was collecting a few years ago, and I saw him not too long ago. Collecting, he used to be in business, got himself caught up with the Russian mafia in Israel, and ended up defaulting on the loan. And they told him they were going to kill him and kill his family if he didn't pay back the money. So he didn't know where to get the money. So he came to North America and started collecting tzedakah. And and I was very skeptical when I first saw this guy. But I saw the letters that he had, and I think I even spoke at some point as one of his, or maybe emailed one of his recommendations who I think I knew. I think he even got a letter from Rav Hershel Schachter. And basically it said, look, this is pikuach nefesh, because they're going to kill the guy if he comes back to Israel without payment. So please help support him. So basically our tzedakah money was to service a mafia debt, which is, when you think about it, it's very ironic. But I guess if it's this, and this guy he claimed that he didn't realize who he was getting caught up with. He thought it was a regular loan and that he'd be able to pay it off. And he claims he didn't realize that it was with the mafia. I'm not sure. 48% interest. Yeah. Sergey with powder around his nose. Yeah.
Playing dumb.
So that's the thing. I don't know if he was playing dumb. I just don't. But the point is that, you feel sorry for the guy, because he basically, and he presented himself as, listen, they are going to kill me, or they're going to kill my kids or my wife or whatever it is. I really need to come back with some money. I would think it was like 50,000 or 500,000. I don't even remember the figure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
He raised the money.
pretty sure he's alive. Yeah. Now, if everybody did that and, and threw themselves at the mercy of the Jewish community, I don't know where we'd be. We probably have to put a stop to it. But this was the only case that I knew of, only situation where a guy was walking through town collecting to pay back the mafia. Yeah. Okay. Ein hadvarim dela'el amurim legabe ani shedarko la'asot chavot al mezonotav v'achar kach shat lifroa otam ve'kevan shezohi derech parnasato. So what we said above, that there's some people who hold that a creditor is not allowed to take from the tzedakah money that a guy is given, is only true if that's not the norm for this guy. In other words, there are some people who are professional schnorrers, and they go and they borrow money from here, and they what's the phrase? They borrow from Peter to pay Paul. Kite, is that what it's? K-I-T-E? Right. So in that situation, but he goes and then he goes around collect, he schnorrs money in order to be able to service his debt. If that's the way he generally lives his life, then obviously a creditor is allowed to accept money that he collects from tzedakah in order to get paid. V'im lo yifra gam mizonotav yachzeru la'atid, because if a guy doesn't use tzedakah money to pay back his debt, and we tell all of his creditors that they can't take the tzedakah money, no one's going to extend him credit, and he won't be able to have money. He won't be able to feed his family. And in that situation, where a guy is a professional schnorrer, I don't like to use the term, but in this case, this is really, this is the guy, that's the way he lives his life. He lives his life by borrowing and then going out to ask for charity and paying off the money that he owes. So if that's the way the guy gets through life, and by the way, I don't think, maybe we shouldn't judge these people. Maybe there are people who have certain mental disabilities that don't allow them to do much more than this, and so who knows? They don't know. Do you remember a guy in the 80s named Super Schnorr? Yeah, do you remember a guy like that? It's a guy in Geula. When I was a yeshiva bacher in the early 80s, he was an American Hasidic guy, most probably a Baal Tshuva, because I remember him singing songs and stuff like that. And he would stand certainly on Fridays when all the boys and girls were out on the streets in Geula, on Friday, during the day, that's when we were unleashed from yeshiva, and the way he was able to convince people to give him money was, he would say, "I'm Super Schnorrer," and I think once in a while he had a T-shirt with an S on it under his, and like he made a whole shtick out of it, and he was very cool, and people helped him out. No, it almost sounded like I think he was collecting for his kollel or something like that, and this was his hook. I guess maybe this was just, he knew how to connect with the American kids. Yeah, he was very successful. But then years later, I saw him and he was actually mentally broken. Yeah, I guess doing that for decades at a time can actually really, really break you down. And so, what started off perhaps as a noble venture can actually really, really break someone. Okay, is it time? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Have a great Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.